Coach Tim Rebowe following a 42-17 loss against Tulane, a team that came out hungry, ready to play. Big play is the difference in this one.
Yeah, I thought we were ready. I thought our guys came out. I thought we played hard. We didn't play well at times, and anytime you don't stop the run like that, it's going to be hard to beat a good football team. They got that running game going, and defense was on the heel a little bit. But halftime we're still in the game. We left some points on the field. We didn't put them on the board. So listen, we just got to get back to work.
It really is incredible that they have those big plays, but you cut it to 21-10 going into the half. You cut it to 28-17. Not for a couple crucial third down conversions, you have a chance to make it a one-possession game.
Yeah, that was big. We got to get off the field. They busted. It started in the first half. They hit a big third down, gave them a little momentum, and then in the second half they got a couple third and longs, and they've got to be able to get off the field.
Coach, your teams just never get down, even on the sideline and right here walking past them. We're already hearing, guys, we got McNeese at 6 p.m. next week. Let's be ready.
Well, I mean, the message is going to be tomorrow is we're 0-0, and we got to get back to conference game, conference opener. This is where it really starts.
We'll see you at 6 p.m. Lake Charles, McNeese, and Nicholls, ESPN Radio New Orleans.
And here we are, the start of Southland Conference play, Saturday at McNeese. Colonels ready to roll in their first of 9 games in SLC play. Welcome to the Tim Rebowe TV show. My name is Bryant Johnson. Coach Rebowe, you've had a couple days after Tulane to get your team set for McNeese, but more importantly, to notice that there were so many positive elements in this game. You outgained Tulane, a couple big plays late, really was the difference.
Yeah, well, we have to find the positives because we got to move on. Just like when we beat Kansas the week before, we had to move on the next week. Well, after a loss, we got to move on to this one. And we did find some positive things that happened, and then we pointed out some of the negatives too. To know if we want to get to where we want to get to moving forward, that we can't make some of those mistakes that we made. We got to be able to tackle better. We got to, as we mentioned earlier, we got to be able to get off the field on third down if we can do that. And then we had some chances in the red zone. We got to put some points on the board. We had a little uncharacteristic. LaRon Fonseca, didn't have a great night. He missed a couple of them. We talked about halftime 21-10. Probably could have been 21-16. And then, we fell down early. Remember the first drive? We had a little trip. So we had some opportunities to do that. But give them guys some credit. They ran the ball. We didn't stop the run very well, and that's what we need to do.
We'll take a look at a few of the Colonel highlights from what became a 42-17 game. But you see Gabe Fuselier get the first touchdown of his career. What a major impact player he's been in just 2 weeks with your program.
Yeah, he had a really good game. He's a big third down guy for us. He made some tough catches for us. He got us going, so it was good to see him break out a little bit.
Speaking of breakout performers, Dontrell Taylor, hey, go ahead, 32 yards, right up the middle. Couple explosive plays to counter a Tulane team that was relying on explosive plays all night.
He ran the ball hard. He ran it well for us. He didn't get uncorked the week before against Kansas, but it was good to see him bounce back. Dontrell had a great couple years for us. We're going to need him the rest of the way also.
He does have a 19 and 32-yard touchdown the first 2 weeks of the season against 2 high-profile FBS opponents.
Yeah, you see his blitzer right here, the quarterback. Boy, he's a big old, good-looking quarterback. He was hard to bring down. It was good to see us finally gang tackling, picking him up. Evan picking up the fumble, stumbling a little bit. We got on him about that he's that's why he's not a running back. He could have scored on that play.
Your defense has now come up with 9 sacks in the first 2 weeks of the year. And here's Gabe Fuselier, a little somersault Ferris wheel effect on a huge 20-yard completion.
Yeah, he goes up and gets the ball. He can go to those out routes and he gets flipped over right there, or he can go over the middle and make the tough catch for you. He bounced right back up and he was ready to go.
Your heart stops whenever you see a player take that type of motion and play. You knew that he was going to have a major impact on this team in the slot spot, helping you out in special teams, but to see it so early in his career?
Yeah, he fit in because he got here this summer and he worked so hard. After spring ball, he worked hard all summer, and then Mason went down, and he was a guy to step up and be ready to go. Him and Stefano got to get going, and then Ty Smith, we moved him from running back to that slot spot, so we got to get some production out of those 3.
Gabe Fuselier, great 3 years with UL. Of course, you have a long history with him from your time working together when you were the DB's coach at ULL. Now the Colonels, they pivot quickly. They've got McNeese on Saturday. We'll take a quick look back at what happened in Thibodaux last year between the Colonels and the Cowboys and continue on with the Tim Rebowe TV show right here on HTV. A 7-2 mark in Southland Conference play last year for the Colonels, and now they have their first of 9 SLC games starting Saturday in Lake Charles. Welcome back to the Coach Rebowe Show, and it was a game that summed up the signature moment of 2017. You win 8 games, but it all started on a Thursday night in late August. A walk-off kick by Laurent Fonseca against the Cowboys.
Yeah, we moved that game up. It was scheduled for early in the season on a Saturday, and we moved it to the first week of the season. And we said, hey, would you like to play it on a Thursday? So it was good. It was at home. The new turf was down. It was the first game on the new turf that we got going, so it was good to get off to a good start. A hard-fought game, and McNeese, the history between Nicholls and McNeese, and they got us the couple years before that previously, so it was good for us to get off and be 1-0.
It was amazing when we were at your radio show Monday night, hearing from so many former players, and including your brother, who talked about that storied relationship and rivalry and memories from '76 and '96 when you were with Nicholls as an assistant. It goes back a long way. A lot of good memories between the Colonels and Cowboys, and now restarting a new era of wins against McNeese.
Yeah, and there were some lean years in between there, but it's good to restart the rivalry and get it back going. But they've done a great job. They recruit very, very well. They know what they want to do. They know who they are. And it was good for us to get off, like I said, last year, to be 1-0 and get a victory over them. And, and they're going to look back at the game and say maybe that kept them out of the playoffs last year, because they had a tremendous season, and they should have been in the playoffs. They were one of the top, at least top 20 teams in the country last year.
We'll take a look at the 37-35 win for Nicholls, and it did come down to the final kick. Brand new turf, 8,000 fans in attendance, unbelievable night before kickoff, and then the game gets started.
Yeah, it was a crazy game. You go back and there you see Damien Jean-Pierre. He had a tremendous night. Getting in the end zone for us, big play after big play. We had some problems in the kicking game, but our defense really stepped up in the first half. They had a number of possessions inside in the red zone, and they only came out with a couple field goals out of it. There you see Jonathan Lewis, a big pick for us, taking it back, going the distance for a touchdown. Anytime you get a turnover, then you can score out of it. It's always big.
Run defense. I mean, they just kept trying to grind yards, but that was a sign of things to come for your 2017 team. Nothing easy up the middle.
Yeah, our defensive line played really, really well. They're a physical team, and you gotta be physical with them, and that's what we're going to have to do. And we're going to have to gang tackle them again this year.
Such a mindset, and it's something you preach over and over again. It's not going to take one; it's going to take all of us.
Yeah, we got to step up. Every phase of the game has to play well, and we talk about that. Whose number's going to be called? Who's going to be ready to play? These guys got to get going. And look, you don't know whether you're going to be able to run a ball against them, pass the ball against them. Here's another big pass play that Damien turns into a tremendous. And that video, I know, has got shown a lot over the last year, the distance that he went. So, but that thing put us right back in the game. And then again, part of the special teams was us stopping them, and they went for 2, and we stopped them and gave us a chance to kick the game winner right there.
How many times do you have to rewatch that game to remember every single moment and play that went into that victory?
Well, you do, and then you put it aside, and then you come back to it, and then you relive it again this week, because you go back and you watch the game. You watch the cut-ups of the game from the previous year when you're playing in-conference opponents. So we do that. We've been watching them along with the previous 2 games that they played this year against Northern Colorado and Houston Baptist. So we'll go back and see some of the things that we did against them that were successful, some of the things that were not.
It was such a moment of credibility that you had built this program over 2 years. You'd had some close calls in games, but to start your season with such a tremendous victory and to do it in such a thrilling manner, it really was that spark that lasted the entire year.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of people that get credit for starting that off and where we ended the season. Starts with the players. I mean, they buy into everything that we're selling to them. You know what I mean? Those guys believe it. And it was good to see all the hard work. And then at the end of the year, it's good to see that those guys getting the recognition for the season that they had. Now it carries over into the off season and into the preseason, and you get some recognition. But now it's time to step up, and you have to produce.
And another reminder that Southland Conference football is as good as it gets, that McNeese does not make the playoffs with a 7-2 team in conference play, and Central Arkansas, Sam Houston, Nicholls. Okay, all 3 get in, but certainly McNeese had an argument, and it's fueled their non-conference conference planning for years to come and how they've made some changes to ensure that that never happens again. We'll continue our breakdown of McNeese and Nicholls, the 2018 version, but also a nice look at the Colonel defensive line and the personalities behind them, and a great moment between Southern Miss and ULM this weekend. We'll tell you more. It certainly involves the Colonels as we continue on with the Coach Rebowe Show on HTV.
Colonel Nation, this is what you can expect this year. A bunch of hungry athletes, all right? You're going to know whenever Nicholls Colonel step onto that football field. Just the mentality we have walking in and the mentality that we're going to leave after.
Hey, finish on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Finish! This is Dan Persona with the dad of the crew, the father. Brandon, the bully. Tank, just Tank.
I'd have to say personality in that sports Inc. is toughness.
Once one person gets a sack,
Everybody
next one, 1, 2, or 3, right?
Yeah.
It's a selfish thing that we do, but it just feeds off each other.
Like, I don't even have to look to my right or left. I know where Kenny and Sully, I know where they at.
We help each other at practice. You know, we see somebody slacking off, we're gonna pick them up.
The personalities of the Nicholls Colonels never in doubt. Welcome back to the Coach Rebowe TV show. 9 sacks through the first 2 games of the season. Sully Lesh has 2.5. Evan Veron, of course, contributing at linebacker. But these big boys up front, they're hungry. They know what they're here to do, and they've continued to deliver through the first 2 games.
You know, it's kind of funny watching that video and seeing Sully talk. He never talks that much, and you get him in front of the camera, and he just turns it loose. But he also gets in front of that camera on Saturday, and he turns it loose there too. He's hard to block. He's the anchor of that defensive line. People have to account for him. They have to know where he is. And then, you know, you add all the other pieces. Those guys have been working together for a couple of years. It's good to see some of those seniors like Devin Semino and Tyler Johnson have a little success in the D-line.
It is unique to see Sully become comfortable with the camera, because 3 years ago, when he arrived as a freshman, probably one of the most quiet guys on the team, and it felt like it continued into last year. These guys become veterans, and they feel like their words do have added weight. Yeah,
and you know, we talk about it as a staff, and we talk about it as a team. You don't always have to say a lot to be a leader on the ball club, and he epitomizes that. I mean, to the fullest, where he speaks so loudly on the field. But when he does say something, you know those guys are listening to him. So he's such a hard worker and a competitor and a winner. I just tell you, man, he's been tremendous for us.
And when we note these 9 sacks and mention that Evan Veron is leading your team in sacks, it really helps out your safeties, your DBs, and your linebackers who can apply pressure, because Kenny Dotson and Sully Lesh, they're going to occupy some offensive linemen on every single possession.
Yeah, when you look at the athletes, so to speak, on the team, when you talk about the wide receivers, you know, you can't talk about them and not talk about the offensive line. Same thing when you talk about the defensive backs and those guys back there getting the picks, and you know, some call them the pretty boys, but you know where it's won, and it's up front, and those guys got to do their job, and they get pressure. And then sometimes, you know, it happened the other day in a game against Tulane. We had some breakdowns up front. And we got to be able to do a better job in the back end. But we have a tremendous offense and defensive line.
We did get a quick sneak peek at Coach Lovings, your new defensive line coach, somebody that you know from his time at UL, and you guys have a long history in Louisiana football. But there was a pretty amazing moment this past weekend. Your former defensive line coach, Anthony Camp, your former running back coach, Brock Hayes, they're now at ULM and Southern Miss, and they took a picture pregame before those 2 programs met so they could show everybody in Colonel Country, hey, this thing lasts, this relationship, it doesn't end when you go to a different program.
Yeah, I think the good staffs, those guys really, you know, you get along on the field, you get along off the field. It's good to see those guys. I could read into both of their minds right there. They're saying, boy, they miss us, and they want to be back in Thibodaux with us. But it's good to see both of them having success. And look, I hope all of our coaches can get what they want and get to where they want to get to, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to help them.
Well, it's really remarkable when you look at how you've constructed this staff and this team, how you have gone about bringing in coaches who've been able to get their break by starting with Nicholls and then have success with your program. Most of them have stuck around. If they've left, it's been for a much bigger job or just some irresistible opportunity?
Yeah, I think it's just like with the players here. It's all about a fit. I mean, you got to have the guys, like I said, get along in the locker room, get along on the field, get along off the field, and we've got some good ones. And look, we're not the first program that's going to lose coaches, and I tell my guys this right now. I hope we lose a bunch more, meaning we're having success and people are going to notice some of the things that we're doing. I mean, I don't want to lose anyone, but I mean, if it can help them get to where they want to get to.
We're ready to roll for this game Saturday against McNeese, and we'll show you what makes the 2018 Cowboy team so unique. They're 2-0. They have a win against a Big Sky opponent in Northern Colorado. They won on the road in their Southland opener against HBU on Saturday. This is the Coach Rebowe Show on HTV. Back for the final segment after this. On the road they go. Third straight week the Colonels are away from home. Third straight night game, and it'll occur in the hole in Lake Charles against McNeese. Coach Rebowe, we know the reputation of McNeese State, and they are 2-0, and they scored 51 points against HBU on Saturday. Hungry team in 2018.
Yeah, Lance Guidry does an outstanding job. He took off. It was Bobby Kiesler, it was Matt Viator, Kirby Brookhouse, and Lance Guidry. I mean, it just the history of the coaches there and the history of the program. They do a great job. Their fans really back them, support them, so they coming home for their home opener, so I'm sure it's going to be a packed house.
They pick up the 17-point win against HBU. The game was really never in doubt. Houston Baptist came back, made it a 44-27 game, but it was 21-0 out the gates for McNeese.
Yeah, their quarterback had them going. Of course, they play great defense like they always do, and then James had a great first half. He was throwing the ball all over the field. They got some weapons. They got some athletes. They know how to win. That's another big thing with what they do.
Over 300 yards passing in the first half for James Tabery. It's his third year as a starter. He is a record-breaking quarterback at McNeese. He'll probably finish third or fourth all-time in passing yards and a number of other notable areas. What a background he has with several of your players from his Holy Cross high school days. And it's week after week, and we expect it in this state. Guys know each other. They've played against each other for a long time, and that adds a different dimension of excitement for these games.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys from the city and who we recruit. And they recruit some of our guys, so it goes that way. And then me and you talk about this all the time too. Guys get on social media, so they know everything about each other, and they'll have a little friendly, little chatter back and forth with each other, I'm sure. But look, it's a good, healthy competition. I mean, it's a good, healthy rivalry. We also mentioned that it hadn't been a rivalry the last couple of years, and because they had got the best of us. But now, hopefully, it's a rivalry back where we can go and compete. We got to go over there and win. I mean, we got to try to win on the road, and I think part of it is our guys have done a pretty good job over the last couple of years in learning how to win games on the road, how to conduct themselves, and that's part of the process learning too. And what we try to do is talk about it's a business trip, and that's what our guys need to understand. And we have a mission to go over there, and we need to come back with a W this week, be 1-0 in conference, and that can set us up next week for our home opener.
It really is interesting with a guy like Tabery. You have this in-season, off-season, because of Manning Passing Academy. You have so many quarterbacks that end up in Thibodaux, and there's a different type of almost friendship that you can have in the off-season when these guys are coming to your campus, they're participating in MPA. James Tabery spent 4 days here, and all he could talk about was how impressed he was with the growth of Nicholls, while also saying, we can't wait for the third week of the season.
Yeah, we have a little relationship going back. Those guys come here, we open our arms, welcome. I tell all those guys if they need something. Jonathan Banks was here. He's here. We've had quarterbacks in the past. Selfo's son was here before. Clint Conk's son was here before. All those quarterbacks throughout the league. So we open up our doors to them, and then we try to close it once we play them that week.
Well, let's just close this show with one more little preview of what's going to happen on Saturday, because this is a team that's obviously throwing the ball with great success. They're forcing a lot of turnovers, and they have a player in Chris Roscoe that leads the country in sacks right now. So business as usual for McNeese.
Yeah, it ought to be an outstanding ball game. Hopefully, we got to show up. Our guys know that. We got to have a good week of practice. It's always a great preparation week. Is going to lead to you playing well on Saturday.
Back on TV, third straight week. It's a Cox Sports game, also available on ESPN3. This is not only a business trip, but what everybody signed up for. They want night games, they want to be on TV, and they want these games to matter. It's here.
Yeah, they do matter. Look, you talk about it's here. We were joking in the office the other day. It's already week 3 of the season. I can't believe it's rolling by that quick. But 0-0, we got to keep fighting. It's still a long season ahead of us. we got to prepare well. We got to go there. We got to execute, and hopefully we can come out on top.
And we'll be back next week for more of the Tim Rebowe Show. Coach Rebowe will take his team to Lake Charles. It's a 6 p.m. game on Cox. You can also listen to our broadcast on ESPN Radio New Orleans. We'll see you next week as we prepare for the first home game of the Colonels 2018 season at home for Week 2 in the Southland Conference against Sam Houston State.